For this video I've decided to take a look at the most destructive devices built by mortals that we know of within the Warcraft universe, and I've decided to structure it as one of my top X videos. The difference being that, unlike those videos, which are almost entirely just my opinion and are ordered on what I like most, this video will be a more objective, though still somewhat opinionated, presentation of the 6 or so most destructive weapons, ordered on how much damage they can actually do. Now, as the title says, I'm going to focus exclusively on mortal-made weapons and devices. Other than the expected stuff I've had to exclude from this video, such as the Forge of Origination from Gul'dan, which was made by the Titanic Watchers, or Sargeras' sword, which can cleave entire planets in two. This also meant that I have to exclude some incredibly powerful artifact weapons that were not made entirely by mortal hands, the most prominent ones being the Fists of the Heavens, which really owe their power entirely to Alakir, and Aluneth, which was made by Aegwynn when she was a guardian of Tirsfol, and thus not mortal. Now, starting off, the first and only in-game artifact on this list is Light's Wrath. Light's Wrath was a weapon created by the Scarlet Crusade in imitation of the Ashbringer, namely by taking a corrupted artifact, in this case a gem which possibly belonged either to Kael'thas or to one of the first Death Knights, imbuing it with the light and affixing it to a staff. However, the ritual which created Light's Wrath was sabotaged by the Dreadlord Balnazar, and thus this staff is an incredibly powerful yet highly unstable device. It has been used to create storms of holy energy as well as large beams of light which can easily vaporize dozens of enemies. And it's also, again, very unstable, very much prone to killing or crippling its user and their allies. The next weapon on this list are the mana bombs. Now, we all know just how strong these weapons can be by looking at Faramor's destruction, and you may be wondering, given that, why it isn't higher on this list. The answer is that the mana bomb used to destroy Faramor was empowered by the Focusing Iris, an artifact of the Blue Dragonflight, and thus was an exceptionally powerful one. More typical mana bombs, using highly concentrated arcane energy, usually vary in power depending on the ones who build them, and don't usually leave behind craters like the Faramor one did, unless they are exceptionally powerful. Instead, these weapons are designed to kill people rather than objects, and most likely function by destroying the mana, the magic they hit, usually to be found inside living people. More typical mana bombs have been used by Kael'thas' forces to eradicate 2 villages, one of druids and one of Kirintor mages, wiping out those caught in their blast radius entirely. The next weapon on this list, which I honestly was not sure whether to put it above or below the mana bombs, but since, unlike the mana bombs, this one was actually outlawed by the Horde, I guess it counts as being more dangerous, though I'm still not sure. I am talking about the new plague, the Forsaken Blight. Now, similar to the mana bombs, this thing kills almost anything it hits within a matter of seconds, magical or not, but unlike the mana bomb, it leaves behind residue which continues killing people and contaminating the area. Mana bombs also leave behind residue, but unless it was extremely powerful, it's usually not lethal. It's a chemical weapon, plain and simple, and an extremely effective one at that. Even at the times when it was diluted, it had lethal and long-standing effects, such as when it was used on South Shore. The next one is the new Breath of Rockmar, the one used by the Arakoa adherents of Rockmar within the Spires of Arak. This weapon channels the energies of the sun into lethal rays of light, which have the power to incinerate large areas or groups of people, dozens at a time. It was used against the Outcast, it was used to great effect against the Old Horde. It is a weapon that caused the adherents of Rockmar to be feared and to rule practically unopposed until the very unlikely alliance between the Old Horde and the Outcast managed to topple them. The explosion which eventually destroyed this mechanism in our universe was said to have torn through the sky, setting the heavens aflame. The next one would be the Bomb, that's its actual name. aka the explosive device used by Overlord Cromgar in Stone Talon, because we've got to have at least one goblin-made item on this list. The bomb is pretty much what it says on the tin, a gigantic bomb, actually one of the biggest bombs ever built, capable of taking out a small town in one blow, and interestingly enough, built to be impervious to damage from outside sources. Now, the last three items on this list are all made in Draenor, because Warlords of Draenor was the expansion to make everything bigger and more epic than it needed to be, I suppose. The third most powerful weapon on this list is the Iron Reaver, another device based on goblin engineering. It's a gigantic Fel Reaver, inspired by the Fel Reavers of the Burning Legion, only built by the Iron Horde. It's bigger than most Fel Reavers, and it's also armed to the teeth with explosives. I imagine it would be able to take on entire armies. Not to mention the fact that, since the Iron Horde's corruption by Gul'dan, this thing has been retrofitted to use Fel power. It's been described as the pinnacle of the Iron Horde's military might, and it's definitely not wrong in that regard. Now, the second most powerful weapon on my list is the Cipher of Damnation. It's hard to define as an actual weapon since it is a written down incantation, but I'm going to count it since the cipher itself is necessary for the actual spell to take place. The Cipher of Damnation is a warlock spell written down in a tome, the actual cipher, which is used to corrupt elementals. Gul'dan used it to corrupt one of the most powerful elementals of Draenor, Sirruk the Firelord, described as the fusion of all the elemental power of Draenor in Chronicle Volume 2. He practically shattered the being and raised an entire volcano, the Hand of Gul'dan, in the process, corrupting the entire area and also cutting off the connection the orcs had to the elements while doing so. So what could top that? What I think is the most powerful mortal-made weapon to have ever been, one which I think could equal some of the devices the Titans or the Burning Legion have made, is the Breath of Rockmar, created by the Apexis Aarakocra thousands of years ago, so the first Breath of Rockmar. Now imagine a spore mound, an absolutely enormous plant-like being, perhaps similar in power level to some old gods, a gigantic creature which basically embodies the power of all of the plant life of Draenor. 3 of those existed in the ancient history of the planet and were very hard to defeat by the servant of the Titan Agromar, namely Grond. And one of them was just revived and marched forward to eradicate the Apexis civilization. Now imagine a weapon that can destroy such a being instantaneously. That was the original Breath of Rockmar. Not only that, but with that same beam, the weapon incinerated thousands of Botani, Genesaur and Nald instantaneously. As another testament to its power, when the Breath of Rockmar was destroyed in an Aarakocra civil war, the impact of that was so powerful that it instantly destroyed the entire zone it was in, along with a vast majority of the Aarakocra living there. The spires of Farak used to be just one mountain, just one spire. The destruction of the Breath of Rockmar turned it into the jagged landscape you can see in Warlords of Draenor. So these are what I've determined to be the most powerful mortal-made weapons of mass destruction in the mortal universe. I thought it was interesting to look at what typical mortals achieved in this universe in regards to it, without intervention from immortal or all-powerful characters, and some of it is really something, I suppose you could say. Just as a minor detail, if I were to continue onwards with this particular list, since I am sure people will wonder about them, numbers 9 and 10, I suppose, on this list would have been the Iron Juggernaut and the Iron Star, perhaps unsurprisingly. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video and I'll see you all later. Farewell.